Mark Twain Selected Works, Chapter 61 of Following the Equator, 1897. In the first place, God made idiots. This was for practice. Then he made school boards. Pudd'nhead Wilson's New Calendar. Suppose we applied no more ingenuity to the instruction of deaf and dumb and blind children than we sometimes apply in our American public schools to the instruction of children who are in possession of all their faculties. The result would be that the deaf and dumb and blind would acquire nothing. They would live and die as ignorant as bricks and stones. The methods used in the asylums are rational. The teacher exactly measures the child's capacity to begin with, and from thence onwards the tasks imposed are nicely gauged to the gradual development of that capacity. The tasks keep pace with the steps of the child's progress. They don't jump miles and leagues ahead of it by irrational caprice and land in vacancy, according to the average public school plan. In the public school, apparently, they teach the child to spell cat, then ask it to calculate an eclipse. When it can read words of 2 syllables, they require it to explain the circulation of the blood. When it reaches the head of the infant class, they bully it with conundrums that cover the domain of universal knowledge. This sounds extravagant, and is. Yet it goes no great way beyond the facts. I received a curious letter one day from the Punjab. The handwriting was excellent, and the wording was English, and yet not exactly English. The style was easy and smooth and flowing, yet there was something subtly foreign about it. Something tropically ornate and sentimental and rhetorical. It turned out to be the work of a Hindu youth, the holder of a humble clerical billet in a railway office. He had been educated in one of the numerous colleges of India. Upon inquiry, I was told that the country was full of young fellows of his like. They had been educated away up to the snow summits of learning, and the market for all this elaborate cultivation was minutely out of proportion to the vastness of the product. This market consisted of some thousands of small clerical posts under the government. The supply of material for it was multitudinous. If this youth with the flowing style and the blossoming English was occupying a small railway clerkship, it meant that there were hundreds and hundreds as capable as he, or he would be in a high place. And it certainly meant that there were thousands whose education and capacity had fallen a little short and that they would have to go without places. Apparently, then, the colleges of India were doing what our high schools have long been doing, richly oversupplying the market for highly educated service, and thereby doing a damage to the scholar and through him to the country. At home, I once made a speech deploring the injuries inflicted by the high school in making handicrafts distasteful to boys who would have been willing to make a living at trades and agriculture if they had the good luck to stop with the common school. But I made no converts. Not one, in a community overrun with educated idlers who were above following their fathers' mechanical trades, yet could find no market for their book knowledge. The same mail that brought me the letter from the Punjab brought also a little book published by Messrs. Thacker, Spink and Company of Calcutta, which interested me, for both its preface and its contents treated of this matter of overeducation. In the preface occurs this paragraph from the Calcutta Review. For government office, read dry goods clerkship, and it will fit more than one region of America. The education that we give makes the boys a little less clownish in their manners and more intelligent when spoken to by strangers. On the other hand, it has made them less contented with their lot in life and less willing to work with their hands. The form which discontent takes in this country is not of a healthy kind, for the natives of India consider that the only occupation worthy of an educated man is that of a ridership in some office, and especially in a government office. The village schoolboy goes back to the plow with the greatest reluctance, and the town schoolboy carries the same discontent and inefficiency into his father's workshop. Sometimes these ex-students positively refuse at first to work, and more than once parents have openly expressed their regret that they ever allowed their sons to be inveigled to school. The little book which I am quoting from is called Indo-Anglian Literature, and is well stocked with Baboo English, clerkly English, booky English, acquired in the schools. Some of it is very funny. Almost as funny, perhaps, as what you and I produce when we try to write in a language not our own, but much of it is surprisingly correct and free. If I were to quote good English, but I'm not. India is well stocked with natives who speak it and write it as well as the best of us. I merely wish to show some of the quaint, imperfect attempts at the use of our tongue. There are many letters in the book: poverty, imploring help, bread, money, kindness, office, generally an office, a clerkship, some way to get food, and a rag out of the applicant's unmarketable education. And food, not for himself alone, but sometimes for a dozen helpless relations in addition to his own family. For those people are astonishingly unselfish and admirably faithful to their ties of kinship. Among us, I think there is nothing approaching it. Strange as some of these wailing and supplicating letters are, humble and even groveling as some of them are, and quaintly funny and confused as a goodly number of them are, there is still a pathos about them, as a rule, that checks the rise and laugh and reproaches it. In the following letter, father is not to be read literally, and Ceylon, a little native beggar girl, embarrassed me by calling me father, although I knew she was mistaken. I was so new that I did not know that she was merely following the custom of the dependent and the supplicant. Sir, I pray please to give me some action work, for I am very poor boy. I have no one to help me. Even so, father, for so it seemed in thy good sight, you give the telegraph office. And another work, what is your wish? I am very poor boy. This understand, what is your wish? You, my father, I am your son. This understand, what is your wish? Your servant, P.C.B. Through ages of debasing oppression suffered by these people at the hands of their native rulers, they come legitimately by the attitude and language of fawning and flattery, and one must remember this in mitigation when passing judgment upon the native character. It is common in these letters to find the petitioner furtively trying to get at the white man's soft religious side. Even this poor boy baits his hook with a macerated Bible text in the hope that it may catch something if all else fail. Here is an application for the post of instructor in English to some children. My dear sir or gentleman, that your petitioner has much qualification in the language of English to instruct the young boys. I was given to understand that your of suitable children has to acquire the knowledge of English language. As a sample of the flowery Eastern style, I will take a sentence or two from a long letter written by a young native to the Lieutenant Governor of Bengal, an application for employment. Honored and much respected sir, I hope your honor will condescend to hear the tale of this poor creature. I shall overflow with gratitude at this mark of your royal condescension. The bird-like happiness has flown away from my nest-like heart, and has not hitherto returned from the period whence the rose of my father's life suffered the autumnal breath of death. In plain English, he passed through the gates of the grave, and from that hour the phantom of delight has never danced before me. It is all school English, book English, you see, and good enough too, all things considered. If the native boy had but that one study, he would shine, he would dazzle, no doubt. But that is not the case. He is situated as are our public school children, loaded down with an over-freightage of other studies, and frequently they are as far beyond the actual point of progress reached by him and suited to the stage of development attained as could be imagined by the insanest fancy. Apparently, like our public school boy, he must work in school and out, and play but little. Apparently, like our public school boy, his education consists in learning things, not the meaning of them. He is fed upon the husks, not the corn. From several essays written by native schoolboys in answer to the question of how they spend their day, I select one, the one which goes most into detail. At the break of day, I rises from my own bed and finish my daily duty. Then I employ myself till 8 o'clock, after which I employ myself to bathe and take for my body some sweet meat. And just at 9:30, I came to school to attend my class duty. Then at 2:30 p.m., I returned from school and engaged myself to do my natural duty. Then I engaged for a quarter to take my tiffin. Then I studied till 5 p.m., after which I began to play anything which comes in my head. After 8:30, 8:30, we began to sleep. Before sleeping, I told the constable just 11. He came and rose us from 11:30. We began to read till morning. It is not perfectly clear, now that I come to cipher upon it. He gets up at about 5 in the morning, or along there somewhere, and goes to bed about 15 or 16 hours afterward. That much of it seems straight. But why he should rise again 3 hours later and resume his studies till morning is puzzling. I think it is because he is studying history. History requires a world of time and bitter hard work when your education is no further advanced than the cat's. When you are merely stuffing yourself with a mixed-up mess of empty names and random incidents and elusive dates, which no one teaches you how to interpret and which, uninterpreted, pay you not a farthing's value for your waste of time? Yes, I think he had to get up at 11:30 p.m. in order to be sure to be perfect with his history lesson by noon. With results as follows, from a Calcutta school examination. Question: who was Cardinal Wolsey? Cardinal Wolsey was an editor of a paper named North Britain. Number 55 of his publication, he charged the king of uttering a lie from the throne. He was arrested and cast into prison, and after releasing went to France as Bishop of York, but died in dysentery in a church on his way to be blockheaded. Cardinal Wolsey was the son of Edward IV. After his father's death, he himself ascended the throne at the age of 10 only, but when he was fallen in his 20 years of age, at that time he wished to make a journey in his countries under him, but he was opposed by his mother to do journey, and according to his mother's example, he remained in the home and then became king. After many times, obstacles, and many confusion, he became king and afterwards his brother. There's probably not a word of truth in that. Question: what is the meaning of Ich Dien? An honor conferred on the first or eldest sons of English sovereigns. It is nothing more than some feathers. Ich Dien was the word which was written on the feathers of the blind king who came to fight, being interlaced with the bridles of the horse. Ich Dien is a title given to Henry VII by the Pope of Rome, when he forwarded the Reformation of Cardinal Wolsey to Rome, and for this reason he was called Commander of the Faith. A dozen or so of this kind of insane answers are quoted in the book from that examination. Each answer is sweep and proof all by itself that the person uttering it was pushed ahead of where he belonged when he was put into history. Proof that he had been put to the task of acquiring history before he had had a single lesson in the art of acquiring it, which is the equivalent of dumping a pupil into geometry before he has learned the progressive steps which lead up to it and make its acquirement possible. Those Calcutta novices had no business with history. There was no excuse for examining them in it, no excuse for exposing them and their teachers. They were totally empty. There was nothing to examine.